All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order for the Abington Fire Station Building Committee. We have myself, Derek Amati, Chair. We have Jared Driscoll, Donna Peavy, Pete Walters for the committee. And then we have our OPM, which is Rick Pomeroy and Taylor McDonald, KBA, Sean Smeagol, and Todd Costa. And we have the DPW Director, John Stone, as well as the Chief of the Fire Department, John Nuttall. And we'll have some other members of the fire department coming on to watch. But we'll get this meeting started, and we're going to start off with a site update. I guess we'll start with our OPM, if you guys want to take it.
Rick, do you want to talk about the meeting last night?
Sure. Well, I attended my last Abington Housing Authority meeting last evening. And they unanimously rejected the temporary easement request. So from my perspective, unless I'm told otherwise, I'm looking at this as a solid done deal in the sense that if we can't cross over that parcel, we can't do any due diligence on that property without coming in from a different direction. I have not, out of repeated requests and attempts, I have not heard back from Lowe's either. So we've hit a stone wall on that property. I think based upon our discussion at our last meeting, there was a consensus drawn at that point that we should move off of the parcel, but I did want to complete the process with the Housing Authority. Any questions on that?
It's pretty clear cut. If we can't gain access to the property to even temporary purposes to test it, we're kind of left without an option to continue working toward that site as a viable option.
Mm-hmm. So unless I hear otherwise from the town, there's nothing more that we can do with regards to that parcel. One of the things Derek and I were having a conversation today, we had recommended last week or last meeting that we go back out to the community and conduct an RFP process to see if there are any parcels that are available. Our experience in this realm is through the Chapter 30B process, wherein a performance requirement is put together, an RFP document is developed, and the performance requirement indicates certain language like so many acres of upland. The property has to be on a numbered route or a major thoroughfare, has to be within a certain radius of your prime spot, those types of things. And then we just hit the pavement. We advertise it publicly. Anybody from the committee that knows any parcels that may be viable, bring the RFQ to the property owner. And we'll have a deadline when submissions can be made and see what we can shake out on this. There's been discussion about the COC property, certainly could be viable. Unless we hear otherwise from the town manager or town council, our read of the state statutes is the most appropriate approach is to perform an RFQ process. And through that process, folks like the property like the CLC property would be submitted for review. That's our recommendation at this point. I know that we want to talk about the DPW site, but we spent a lot of time trying to get to the Glen Oaks Way parcel. And all the indications are that it's just not viable. And now we have, now we've got it, we're starting from square one again. I would think that we'd want to take another look at, and this may be not a popular subject, but we take another look at the North School parcel. You know, we're in a situation right now where we have a very strong need and we don't have a site to fulfill that need. So we would recommend that we work on parallel tracks, look at the DPW, conduct the RFQ process, maybe revisit any parcels that have been viewed in the past that have been passed on for maybe parcels that were passed on because of the opportunity that presented itself for Glen Oaks Way. We need to, you know, peel it back and really revisit everything. So that's kind of where what we're recommending for the town. We don't have any other viable options in our back pocket for properties. So that's what we would recommend.
And to hop on what Rick said, I've already roughed out the RFP for the land. So we just need some input from the town on really the radius on where you want to focus the search around, because you don't want to make it too wide that you're extending yourselves out and you're hurting your response time. So you know, we've done it in the past where it's really just a circle or a box around a certain mile radius of where you want to try to get proposals from, so that, you know, you're not looking at proposals that don't make much sense. But I did finish roughing it out yesterday, so it's pretty much ready to go. It just needs a once over of from the town side. Needs some information on timing, any insurance requirements, and things like that you might want to include. So the town council might want to take a look at it, but it is it's pretty fully baked at this point.
Can I make a suggestion on that? Perhaps because of the density of the town, perhaps, Taylor, what we do is we do several radiuses. One being the optimal radius, properties that fall within this area. And then another qualification would be areas that fall out of that in this other radius. And, perhaps there's a radius that's just unacceptable, but then we could use that in the, advantageous, least advantageous, most advantageous comparisons later on.
I can work with you, Derek, or anybody from the town to kind of help me put that together. I did send a draft over yesterday of the RFP. So if you want to take a look at that, if you have any questions, I'll answer them for you. But I think, like Rick said, the biggest part of that we just need to nail down is where we want to focus on.
Okay.
I'd say without having a map in front of us right here, really, it's probably the Washington Street corridor on either side of that, which would be Route 58 to Route 18. And you could extend somewhat beyond that slightly, but really it's the Washington Street, the residential Washington Street part, that's kind of the core. I mean, Route 18 obviously would be the absolute center. We've tried that with that location. But to now begin to expand that, it's difficult to go west up toward Hancock Street to get to any other parts in town. So, and going east off of 18, we can probably go as far as Route 58 along the Plymouth Street, Adams Street portion. But even then, you're going to want to try to bracket it not too far north or south, really between close to 139 or a little more north in 123. That's kind of the core of the town, realistically, responses. And just going back to one thing that Rick said too, if I could, you're right, we got to find the adequate location on this, but we've also got to sell this to the town politically and financially, which is, again, we had a conversation with looking at the needs of the DPW and the fire department. They also had their needs. We have our needs. If there's a way to use the portion of land that they currently have to do something to combine it for both departments, I think that location is right smack in the middle of where I just said, as well as trying to sell this to the town, to the residential voters, both politically and financially. They're getting a big bang for their buck, certainly, because it's two massive projects combined into one, which I think would be cheaper overall. And there's already trucks in that area, emergency vehicles. I think that may be an easier sell than to try to go to a new location that they're not used to that. So I would personally be interested in, again, really focusing on the DPW lot along Central Street. I don't want to speak for them. I think Director Stone's here, but, we did have an initial meeting with him, with the town manager and members of the Abington Police Department. We're also a direct abutter, as we spoke last time. And really, I think it could be a win-win for everybody. But
Chief, I think you're right. I think, that the area of the DPW facility is 4 acres. So, I mean, it might be able to squeeze in both buildings. And like you said, would get more bang for our buck, and we'd have a public safety complex, so to speak, like many other towns have. I have it up on my other screen on Google Earth. I don't know if I can share it or if it's too late.
Yeah, we could do that. Kevin, have you have access to share in a second.
Thank you. And thank you for having me all.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much for coming on.
Can I ask a question, Derek? I'm sorry, I was late because we're moving my office, but can you tell me who's speaking, please? I'm sorry.
That's DPW Director John Stone.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thanks.
The portion that you have missed was that the OPM had followed up with the next meeting with the Housing Authority, and they denied temporary access across that state property, which unfortunately means that there's really nothing we can do with that lot that we purchased. So the OPM, which I agree with everything that's been said, I think it's a great idea to work in parallel and, still look at any other viable sites, but there is a need that the DPW needs for a new building, and they have land that could help us do a combo public safety building complex right on Central Street next to the police station. So John Stone is about to show us on this picture here what he's thinking.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
The outline, the perimeter in yellow is a total of 4 acres. In the front here where my pointer is, I hope you can see it. It's just a bunch of buildings put together. And then there's a couple of trailers, and then the two salt sheds. I think if, maybe we could put something DPW wise back here. And obviously the fire station is definitely more important, and put that up front. It's just a thought we had. And, I also ran by Scott and Chief, we were talking about this, maybe trying to purchase this vacant lot here and to make it one big turnaround for everybody. And I don't know, we already own the property, so it was just an idea we had.
I think in talking with the OPM that this is something that we've discussed, and I think you guys have some things prepared to discuss about it.
Somewhat. I think that what we were talking about was engaging with the architect and developing a program for not only, we have a program for the fire department, but developing a program for the DPW to identify. Obviously, you don't want to just replace what you have. My guess is is it John? John, my guess is that you're probably jam-packed right now, and so theoretically, you would want to end up with more space in the end. So we thought that the most appropriate approach would be for the project architect to sit down with the department and develop a project program which would identify the space needs, so that some conceptual planning and spatial planning could be developed, which would tell us what would be needed for the site from a square footage for building, circulation for vehicles, all of those different components, to start fitting things into the site. Also looking at similarity of uses. Are there spaces that can be used by both departments or all 3 departments, to help cut down on the spatial needs for the department. So 4 acres is not a lot when we're talking about housing 2 departments. So we're going to have to get constructive with this. And I can't speak for the architect or the site planner, but I would think that the parcel easterly of the police station that runs all the way to the back is most likely going to be essential to make this work. But Taylor, I do know that you would talk to Sean about getting a proposal from KBA. Is that right?
Yeah, and Sean, you can speak to that if you'd like, but I know they wanted to understand a little bit more about, what we're discussing today. And it sounds like one of the questions that we were booting around was, I know, land is at a minimum, but, KBA didn't know if we're going to put the fire station here, is DPW, we have to look for another location somewhere else for them, but it sounds like we try to make it work here. And like you said, Rick, the first part of that is doing a program for the DPW, which I've spoken to Sean about too. So I think that's the next step here. If we have a program for both of them, then we can ultimately figure out if we have enough land here.
Right now, if you look at the maps, all our equipment and personnel are stored in the front buildings. These two buildings right here are just salt sheds. And this is all vacant area. So I don't know. And I think in talking with the chief and the town manager, there may be an opportunity to combine administrative offices and things of that nature so the taxpayers get more bang for their buck.
What's the property to the left of it that looks like they have,
Private contractor.
equipment? It's a contractor.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Todd, Sean, what's you guys will be doing the site planning and the spatial planning. What's your recommendation here?
Yeah, no, I think what Taylor, you hit on it exactly right. Just a little bit more understanding exactly, what the town's thought process is, whether it's, combining everybody on this one property, which I think that was what we intended originally. Again, the portional property access on the right, on the eastern portion of this lot, which I think that had been briefly discussed at previous meetings. But no, we've lightly drafted up a proposal, have enough information to get it in front of Scott, the town manager, and to start programming out what the DPW needs are. And then, as you just noted, looking for those combined program elements between DPW and the fire department. We would assume potentially that the health department and the building department may be here as well or not, depending on how this all works. So that's where we are. And I think, the next portion of this is to sit down with Director Stone and, really start but understanding their needs. And then with that, kind of reassess, I don't say the fire department needs, but kind of, take a deeper dive into their program needs, which I know we already had originally, but, we may, I don't want to say consolidate, but there may be some efficiencies we'll have to dig into to make this property work. And then, as I said a little bit before, that lot to the east, and I would agree with Rick as well, that would be a good loop road, potentially an emergency or DPW entrance or access from the side, so stuff like that. And then, I know we have the basketball courts here. I know that portion of it, or I don't know that portion of it, but that's part of the police department, renovations or additions at that time. But maybe there's a little bit of
they could be relocated.
Right, that's what I mean. So kind of redevelop, along is that Central Street? Yeah, Central Street there.
Yes, sir.
So these are all things that we would be, an additional, I don't say additional, but a feasibility study on this site. We did the feasibility studies on the other sites. This one's raised themselves to the top, and then with the RFQ going out, but hopefully or potentially something else. So, very shortly that proposal can get out there for approval. We'll sit down with Director Stone and work our way through it.
And just another point. Sorry, Chief. The police station's gym is actually in front of our building at the highway on Central, in front of the DPW building, because they didn't have room in the new police station. So there's another opportunity for, the fire station needs a gym, the police station needs a gym. There's one here, but the roof leaks. There's an opportunity to have one big gym and get more bang for our buck for the taxpayers.
I'm sure KBA is, as you started to look at this, are, to me, the first or the biggest thing to overcome here, I think, is the circulation and, parking, and you have the fire trucks, that need to get out right away. So, the buildings, you might fit pretty easily, but I feel like the circulation and the parking is going to be one of the biggest challenges here.
Valid point.
Todd, the white roofed structures in the center of the site, for the police department, I'm sure everyone else on the call knows what they are, but
This one here is vehicle maintenance. We wouldn't be touching that. That was built in 1998. There's a semi-new hydraulic lift in there. We wouldn't need anything vehicle maintenance wise. And this building here is a police outhouse. They store different types of vehicles and equipment in there.
Right. That was put in with the project when we did it quite a few years back.
Yes, sir.
So, John, you guys use that vehicle maintenance bay now?
All the time, every day.
Yeah.
We have
Well, that's good that can stay. That's usually
that'll stay. That we don't need to add that to the cost of the project at all. That is in good shape. The building is new for our standards, 1998, 1999, but it's in great shape, and we wouldn't need to do anything there.
I have a question with regards to that, John. Is it just DPW equipment that's maintained in there, or does that also?
Everybody's equipment, fire,
Perfect.
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 Schools, water, sewer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's 150 vehicles we service.
So one of the things that we'll need to be considering here is that I'm assuming that you have to have a reasonable size staging area for the vehicles that are maybe dropped off that you have to work on.
Not really. They're parked right. I don't know if you can see my.
I can.
All right. We usually just park them there, and then there's 3 very large bays, garage bays, where if we have to order parts and keep say an ambulance or a fire truck overnight or a police cruiser. We store them in there, so there's not really a need for a huge parking there.
Okay, good.
But I know that police outhouse is kind of like not in an ideal spot for this whole operation.
I think we should probably change the name of that.
It's an outbuilding.
Yeah, it's an outbuilding.
Yeah. I shouldn't have said outhouse. I should have said outbuilding.
Yeah, I can't do it right now.
Sean, how quickly can we get something in front of the TM so that we can get moving on this?
So like I said, Todd and I, we've drafted some next week.
Next week? Okay.
Yeah, we've got some rough language outlined, just kind of getting our head around it. We would want to pull in a consultant to us that specializes in DPW, so we're talking the right language. But
Yep,
absolutely.
So I'm sorry. Please go ahead, John.
Actually, no, it's actually, this is Chris Walsh talking. I had technical difficulties getting here. Quick question for how big is the lot we're looking at?
4 acres.
4 acres. Because we built one in Randolph 4 years ago. And I want to say we put a 5-bay fire station, strictly only fire station, with a drive around with parking in the back. And it can't be more than 0.75 acres. So, I mean, 4 acres, I know somebody said they didn't think 4 acres was very big, and we're right on Main Street, on North Main Street in Randolph. So, I mean, I can get more specifics from the chief if you like me to, but 4 acres to me would be pretty significant to be able to house a couple of different departments. But, I'm not sure how big a building we're looking to build.
It can be, Chris, we're very familiar with it. We actually worked on that project. We did that project.
Okay.
So we have all the specifics we can share, but the 4 acres, when you start talking about these 3 operations, commingling, can get chewed up quite quickly with even just circulation and the appropriate placement. Not saying that it can't be done. It's just looking at right now what's in front of us. The narrow portion, which is where you obviously want the fire trucks responding directly out to Central Street, will pose some challenges to get circulation all the way around. So it may have to be a little bit creative, but we need to get the program established for DPW to know what extent that they need storage of their equipment, the quantity of their equipment, number of offices, to be able to better assess that and then see what's required. Then we, look at what's available for utilities and keep going from there.
Just another point of interest, these two salt sheds, they are falling apart. But I think if we went to one larger one and stuck it out back somewhere, I think that would accommodate us finally. And also, I think, having police, fire, and us in one location would save the taxpayers money on us having to drive to two different fire stations, plow them, salt them. We'd all be in one area. So the taxpayers will get more bang for their buck.
If I can piggyback.
Well, there's a lot of benefits from that because the departments are a lot of shared space, and having the mechanic right in the same area as the fire station, as well as the police station where we respond to from time to time, it pulls us all together, just like a lot of the other communities have done public safety buildings. So it would be something that would be beneficial and definitely can save the town some money. And from what I'm hearing, it realistically sounds like we need to have a program done for the DPW and to take the program that we currently have and put them onto this map and take a look at what we need for space. Is that what it kind of comes down to?
Yes, sir, Derek.
All right.
One of the original things, we didn't really look at this site seriously originally. First of all, we didn't realize the DPW had the needs that they did. We kind of figured that was their land. This portion was fairly settled and busy. So that's why we really didn't look at this too seriously to begin with. And I think it may be a good thing that Glenovich is not working out, because this site is looking more and more attractive all around, both, in terms of just operations for the town, as you both just mentioned, is trying to sell this to the residents and the taxpayers. I think it's a bigger bang for the buck. We really didn't realize the DPW had the needs that they did. They kind of came up, after us. We were maybe about a year ahead of them with our feasibility study for the fire station when John started to say, that they were starting to point out theirs too. So it really could be a great marriage, I think, joining these two projects together. Had we known this originally of their needs, I think this whole thing maybe from day one may have focused on this, but it's just kind of how it worked out. The other thing just to keep in mind too about placing the fire apparatus bay, and obviously I'm not a architect, I'll defer to whomever, but there's a number of departments in this area where they really don't directly face out into the street. Situate's new one on Route 3A, I think Sharon's, theirs is kind of skewed somewhat off. There's a number of them where you can almost have it, the bays are kind of pointing towards where the police station is, but then you kind of take the right to come out to Central Street too. So I think all options could be in the table to try to make this site work, because I think the site is sellable to the residents. And that's the other key component that I said before. We can come up with perfect sites. We have come up with perfect sites, but if we cannot sell those to the residents for either they just don't want it there or financial reasons, the whole thing's dead in the water anyway. So if we can try to make this work, I think it could be a win-win for everybody.
So, Chad, to add on to yours, Chief, another one you might want to consider looking at in regards to like where they intermingled is that new one they built in Weymouth. It's actually, I think it's behind their DPW building or the police station. It might be the
I think
police
that's Station 5, correct? Yep.
Yes, yeah, Station 5, yeah. We go over there with our ladder truck. So, that one there, it's a little tight, but, they're able to move the apparatus in and out of there.
Sounds like we have some good motivation here. Would you prefer to hold off on the townwide search for land and focus on this, or run it out there and see what comes to the top?
My vote would be to hold off and just focus on this, just so that we're not wasting time and money. That's just my vote. I'm not even on the committee. I'm just the fire chief. But my suggestion would be, I think that's worth doing, because I think this is, as I just said, a very sellable project to the residents. But that's my take.
That would be my vote as well, even though I'm not a voting member of the committee. I just think the taxpayers would get more bang for their buck.
But along with that, I think we need to put a specific deadline on this so that we're not going out 6 months and then finding out it's not going to work.
Well, from the committee's standpoint, I guess we need to discuss is it worth doing our due diligence to at least put out this RFP or RFQ to at least cover our basis with that? Or I do think that the site's a very great spot. But like Pete just said, don't want to waste too much time with one thing or the other. Should we at least, for the residents' standpoint, at least do our due diligence? And can that be done at the same time?
I agree with Chief Nuttall. I love this, and I'm close to this area too. So even here on the fire engines, police wouldn't bother. And if there's anything I can do to push it to get it going faster, I like this area. I think it's great to have them all together.
Before you make a decision, Derek, I'm going to put the pressure right back on KBA. Todd and Sean, how quickly can you, I know you're going to get us a proposal next week. We're going to sit down, we're going to negotiate it, everything else. But I think if we put this on a very short leash, as Peter had said, how quickly do you think that you could program this and start giving us some schematic thoughts on this site?
Programming is going to be one of the more challenging aspects of it, Rick, just to get a full understanding of it. And like I said, get the individual or the company that's much more familiar with the DPW side of things on board and engaged. That'll, to test fit it, I mean, you've seen, our landscape department, we can get an overall cloud of size of facility and start to shift that stuff around and see how the circulation is going to work and see how it relates to the existing site as it is, and then as we've been talking, whether or not that easterly site becomes available or needs to become available to push the overall better circulation and flow. So I know that's kind of a non-answer in it all, but
I'm used to it.
It's I'd love to say May would be the where everything could kind of come together, have numbers and things of that nature, all relative to what it would mean. Very quickly, just my 2 cents on it would be, it doesn't hurt to have that solicitation for that property running at the same time. So that way, if for some reason we find out that this doesn't work for whatever, you've already got some potential information coming in, and there may be that, golden aha nugget that comes up as part of the, that search, but you can hold that off to the side if this really starts to gain some legs and roll forward and become a viable, excuse me, option with putting everything into this site.
I have a question for
Wendy,
Chief
I'm
Nuttall,
sorry,
if I could.
Wendy has her hand emoji up. Do you have a question?
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. Okay, I thought it was on mute. So I actually have a couple of questions. You mentioned a feasibility study that would have to be done again. And is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and so would that have to be brought then to town meeting again? Or can we just do it? Like, do we need to get permission from the town meeting or anything to have a feasibility study? Is there an additional cost? Because we already had this in place
Well,
before.
We've had a feasibility done for the fire station, but for the DPW would be something separate. As far as the funding for it, that would be something that would have to be brought to the town manager. And maybe the OPMs have some experience with this, but I think we'd be able to, if we're going to use it as a combined public safety area, we might be able to use some of the funding that we had already acquired at the last town meeting. But that's a question for, I would think, town manager and town council.
Okay, has that been talked about at all? Do you know?
The town manager and the two department heads that are on now did have a meeting, but I don't know if they discussed funding.
Okay. And then I was wondering how many DPW workers there are.
We have, right now, Wendy, we have 11 field staff
Okay.
and 2.5 office staff.
Okay.
We are a skeleton crew.
Yeah. And ideally, how many would you want to have on your crew?
Other towns of comparable size have about 18 on their crew. I know the town I live in has 18 and they're smaller than us.
Okay.
And probably 5 office staff.
Okay.
That would be ideal, Wendy. I mean, we're not asking for much. We're just
No,
looking
but I
for
just want to make sure there's enough room. You know what I mean?
You're right. No,
For
you're
your
right, Wendy.
expansion in case.
You're right, Wendy.
And then, so the basketball courts you said could be moved. Do you have any ideas of like some potential spots to move them, or would they just be, I know the kids like them, but there's other, people from other towns that use them as well. So, sorry. So would you, do you know like any spots that you would think that they could possibly?
Probably Memorial Field, Wendy, but it would probably would need input from the Park and Rec Commission. I don't even know if they'd have to be moved. It was just brought up real quick.
Yeah. No, I totally hear you. I know they talked about it the last time too. And excuse me, and I think that it would definitely give extra space for you guys as well.
Yeah, the fire would need that extra space out front. I don't want to speak for Derek or Chief, but it seems to me that they'd need to utilize that area.
Right. And so is there a way for that land? I don't know who owns it or anything, but can that get onto this town meeting that's coming up in April, or is that too late? Like, is this going to be now another year before we can get some of this little process done?
As Derek said, I think that would be up to Scott, but we've talked about it, and I think that would be essential to this project. Yeah. It's a vacant lot. I mean, I don't know what it would take. That's not my area of expertise, but I know we talked about it real quick with the chief and Scott.
And it's vacant that the town owns it, or it's an individual that owns it?
An individual owns it.
Okay.
There was a house on there that was deemed unsafe, and they have since raised it, and now it's just a vacant lot. And if it would be beneficial for the town, no matter what, even if this didn't come to fruition, it would be beneficial for the town to own that in case the police needed to expand a little bit someday. I don't know if that's the case or not.
Totally agree. And I just, for the guys that don't live around here, and I don't know if it means anything or not, but I don't know if that front police station, the parking spaces, if they could be utilized by more than one department, depending on where it's located, because honestly, it's really not usually busy. I drive by it a lot. Occasionally they have the meetings at night. I know the police probably get together and have meetings, but I didn't know if that could possibly be shared. And then the little spot in the back where you can see are probably the police personal vehicles. It looks like there's a green space, maybe, pulling your spaces for you guys up into that space. I don't know if there's any way of trying to utilize some of that police parking or police area in the back where it's not being used. Do you know what I mean? Just throwing that out there.
That's a valid point, Wendy.
Pete, go ahead.
A couple things. Number one, when KBA does the looking at what we can do with the property, I think we need to make sure that the police know that we're looking at the basketball courts and outbuilding. Am I correct?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. All I said was the outbuilding isn't in the ideal spot. It's new. I don't think they'd want to move it.
Okay. And I guess, but especially the basketball courts. And I'm thinking if some kind of rendering doesn't come until May and it doesn't work out, I think in the meanwhile, we should be doing the RFP. Just again, what happens if this goes south? It's another 3 or 4 months down the tube.
Yep.
John, who are the basketball courts? Are they Park and Rec, or are they the police station?
Chief Majensky had them put in. We pick up the trash in them. We mow around them. I know they're heavily used, but we also have basketball courts on Green Street. I think we could relocate them in the interest of public safety.
We could even look at Abington Grove and maybe clean that up with some new basketball courts.
Yeah, we could put basketball courts anywhere, but I think I think Derek and the chief would attest that that they might need that area for fire vehicles pulling out or pulling in or whatever. I don't know.
I also think that you're gonna hear the residents say, oh, a basketball court, you don't want kids there with the fire engines going out.
Probably.
And police cars. So maybe if you do come
Probably.
over to Abington Grove, it'll give them more space and then they won't have something else to complain about, kind of.
That's the only thing that I worry about with that is that there's some people that are not Abington residents that use that area. And what's good about it is that it is around the police station, but then it takes away from our little kids too. And if it's in the Grove, that's just like nobody's looking at over there. Do you know what I mean? But at least if it's maybe at Memorial Field, there's some more eyes. I don't know. Just a thought.
To be honest with you, if you may find some location for it in between, if we get that easterly parcel and that becomes a thoroughfare or an access road for the DPW, you could almost logically see basketball courts going on that easterly side as well. So there may be some space there.
Very well could be.
And again, is there anything we can do to help get it going or?
Eric, if I may?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so it sounds like I think there's been conversations on both sides, but it sounds like you're slanting towards running on a parallel track and getting the RFP out there for for property search and analysis, as well as having KBA and perform programming and feasibility study for this property. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I believe we voted for the RFP last meeting, at least to at least get this going. So I think that's something, if it's going to take till May to do programming, it behooves us to at least be doing something.
Okay.
As far as the feasibility, I don't think it's up to our committee to vote on if we can fund it, but I think we can if we get the town's approval, because we did get funding to move along and present to the residents a final picture. And I think if we're going to do this, we should be able to use those fundings, but that would have to come from the TM and town council.
So what we could do is this: we could summarize this once we get the KBA proposal. There is some cost. There is some cost associated with it on the Pomeroy side for the land acquisition and RFP, and then being involved with the feasibility study. So we can get all that pulled together along with KBA's proposal and get it in a memo to the TM with the action plan and a schedule. What we're going to do in that memo is include what our perceived importance with the easterly parcel, and get it in front of the TM and see where we go with this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that would be an ideal thing to do. Is if we're going to seriously look at this, let's find out about that property to the east and advise the TM to work on authorizing feasibility for the DPW so we can get this ball rolling, but in the same time, do our due diligence with everything else.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, can I ask a quick question, Chief Nuttall? Is he still here?
Yep.
Chief, quick question. Are you preferring a drive-through fire station, or are you looking for one in the back in the apparatus?
Realistically, it's going to be backed in because the drive-throughs always end up just accumulating apparatus behind it. And they're very well intentioned, but I realistically don't think that would be, I don't think that would be realistic long-term.
Good, because I know with us and at the one we got, we actually had problems because of the size of the lot with a couple of bays. You have to do almost like a 3-point turn to come from behind. And I just, that would play a big role if you're gonna do that on this type of plot where you would have the station put if you're gonna try to do the turning radius.
Well, I can say, doing the programming pretty extensively, especially with the chief at the beginning of this, that there is possibilities of, we're going to have to go into schematic design anyways. We just haven't been able to get to that step because of the roadblocks we've been hitting with the site. But there are ways to do stations with backup bays and drive-through bays. And if the basketball courts were shifted to the side or relocated, there's definitely potential to be able to do that. But that just takes time to get to that next step of actual schematic design. And we haven't been able to really get there because we don't know where we're going. But I do think that there is enough space to come up with a way to make it work.
All right, thank you.
And just from a DPW standpoint, we don't really need anything intricate, just garages and an office space of some type, and that's about it.
All right.
Derek, if I could real quick, and I apologize, I actually have to go to town hall to another meeting, another major project that's going on in Abington as well. But I think you all know my thoughts on this. Obviously, I'm just trying to get this going for the town, for both departments, for everybody. You know how to reach me, whatever, but by all means, continue. I have to go to another meeting now, unless anybody has any questions for me right now. Otherwise, I'll take off. All right. Thank you, folks. John, thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
All right. Well, with the OPM, so right now KBA has a plan in place with the OPM we're going to reach out to the town manager and find out about the next steps for a program and feasibility study for DPW. And at the same time, continue with the RFP. Is there anything else that needs to be discussed that because as of right now, everything has been voted on from the previous meeting. So I don't think that there's anything that has to be voted on now unless there's a new subject that needs to be discussed. Go ahead, Wendy.
I just have a quick question so we have the town and all the residents purchase that other land. Like, what's going to happen with it? Can it be turned into conservation? Does the fire station own it? Does the town own it? What happens? Do we
personally, I was thinking it could be used as an access road. We could have kind of like a 2 access points to the public safety facility.
I'm sorry, John. I meant the land on Glenowitz.
Oh, sorry about that, Wendy.
No, my apologies. I wasn't
My apologies,
there.
Wendy.
No, mine. By the way, you're awesome.
Thank you, Wendy. You are too.
Wendy, what was your question again? I'm sorry.
So my question is, what are we going to do with that land we just bought on Glenowitz? Can we turn it to conservation, or what's going to happen? People are going to be mad.
Well, I mean, it wasn't. We did everything that we could to facilitate that as a viable spot for the fire station. I think maybe Rick, you might want to talk a little bit more because you were hands in with that meeting. But I can say that I think we did. It's a good spot to do, and I know it was a separate line item for the town meeting, so it was going to be purchased regardless of our ask at the last town meeting. So,
Okay.
It wasn't tied in directly with us. It was purchased, I would hope, with the intent of us being able to use it, but it was purchased as a separate line item at that town meeting. So it's not directly tied into any specific project. It was just a vacant, landlocked lot that the town was able to purchase for a good deal.
Okay. Thank you.
I could give you my opinion, because no matter what you do, you're going to need the support of the housing authority. Or you can't access it. What the read I was getting was obviously they were looking for low impact use, and they were very serious about the concerns with the traffic on Glenowitz. So, it really, unfortunately, you're landlocked with that parcel, and if you turned it into conservation land, somehow or other, you still have to provide the public access to it. And maybe it comes from the town parcel around the backside of the town hall. I don't know. But the housing authority was very genuine in their concerns on the impact of any additional development on the Glenowitz Way, and not releasing any of their rights on their parcel.
They can have my 40B from Summer Street if they want it.
So right now, I think we kind of have everything set. Is there any new business that we need to discuss, or is there anything else that the committee needs to discuss and vote on from the OPM or KBA standpoint?
Can I just get a copy of the minutes from the last meeting? I missed it. Or the minutes are
Yes, we can forward that out to you.
not a good secretary if I don't have them.
You could also watch it online.
Yeah, it's
Oh, okay.
recorded. It's on the, after we record this, it gets posted to Abington Cam's YouTube.
Oh, okay.
It's a great watch.
Great. Now my comments will be
trust-
on that, right?
I trust there's a notebook with the meeting minutes and agendas in the library.
So that is in progress. We
Okay.
have that last meeting that was done, the minutes were taken, and those are going to get brought down, but Donna wasn't in, and I think
Okay.
we're going to spend some time off air and go through the procedure of all that.
Okay.
Anything else from Pomeroy and KBA?
Well, thanks. We're good. Thank you.
Okay.
Let us know if we can do anything.
Anything from the committee as far as next steps?
No, I'm just excited to get this going, see what we can do with this as quickly as possible.
Okay. All right then. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Should we
second.
schedule the next meeting or?
Next meeting,
Oh.
yeah.
A good idea.
I rescind my motion.
Also,
Thank you.
are we meeting with Bob Mitchell again to talk about design?
Yeah, so yes, we will be. And I think as they'll kind of run concurrently with the DPW programming. And like I said a little bit earlier with when talking about to Chief Nuttall about any sort of I don't want to say reductions of program, but rethinking the program of what potentially could be either reduced or eliminated potentially.
Essentially, if the building department and the health department aren't going to be part of our facility, because the big reason or draw to bring them into our facility was that it was going to be right next to town hall.
Yep.
And they'd be right there. So if you just nix the building and health department and substitute in the DPW department, it's almost like a wash. Like the space might be about the same. The space that we have for the health and building might be just enough space for the DPW, because I don't think it was that big, but
It was about 30. Oh, sorry, Jared.
go ahead.
It was about 3,500 square feet that we had for the health and building departments. You know, we had planning rooms, private offices, director's office, stuff like that. So I would agree with you. I think it's going to be pretty darn close to what the needs would be for Director Stone. And then whatever consolidations, the fitness rooms and the day, kitchen rooms, the level of, or do we maintain the 5 bays? I know we had like an accessory garage and stuff like that. So the things like that we want to dive into and then come to general consensus if there's any sort of, again, a reduction of program or a program that can be solidified with all 3 departments possibly.
Yeah.
So
I also think that like that accessory type bay, like the Space Metal building, it could be a dual purpose. The highway could keep stuff in there and we could keep stuff in there, because half the time we have something broken, it needs to be at the highway anyway.
Right.
And it would already be at the highway. So that if we had a shared large building just for storage, that would make sense too. So I didn't know if you're going to schedule a meeting with Bob and we were going to be part of that, or if the DPW would be the only ones part of that.
No, the meeting the meeting with Bob would be with the fire department and ourselves and OPM, and then it'll be a separate DPW consultant, if you will, another engineer that we work with or have worked with in the past.
So do we have to? Would we have to vote on bringing additional members to this committee to represent the DPW so they could be part of that meeting?
Actually, John Stone, could you close out your screen share, please? If you don't
Sorry
mind.
about that.
No worries. That's actually a good question. I know that we discussed at our last meeting, is that premature from the OPM or KBA standpoint for us to do that before we have an idea, or should we wait till after we hear back from town manager and town council about bringing on the ability to do this project?
I think that let's get to the point where we're moving forward. Certainly you want buy-in from both departments, and the best way to get that is through attendance or working with specific members from each department. Very similar to if we were doing a public safety facility with police and fire, we would have members from both departments on that working committee. So, the whole idea behind this is the success of the project comes from the input from the end user. So you need both of them in the working group.
Okay. So if we were to do that, we could make a motion to acquire potentially 2 more members to the committee, but we would only do that as a motion to request it from the town. So the Board of Selectmen would still have to appoint them, correct?
I would say so, yeah.
Okay. All right. Also really quick, I'd like to invite Allison Sullivan, our state representative. She hopped on. She was curious about what we're doing for our committee. So take the opportunity to invite her on and say hello.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I guess I can entertain a motion to request from the Board of Selectmen additional members to the committee. And I would assume that we would need at least 2 members. Is that correct? Yes.
Yeah. I'm just trying. The numbers are getting quite large.
I just didn't know if it had to continue to stay at an odd number or if it would be in our best interest.
Well, the whole point of the committee is to make decisions to facilitate the design during a feasibility study. And you would think that the joint spaces, you would want input from both groups, but the specific DPW spaces, you want input from the DPW, and the specific fire, you want it from that. So, KBA and Pomeroy Associates, we deal with multiple departments all day long. So it's certainly something that we can deal with. So I would think that during the working sessions, when you're doing the programming, is when you're going to have, of course, Director Stone, and maybe Director Stone's going to have 1 or 2 of his folks involved with those as well. So getting to the point where the town makes it, I'm thinking out loud right now, getting to the point where the town makes a decision that we are going forward with this, and it is going to be a joint facility. I think that's when you'd probably officially add people onto the committee. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Because right now you're commissioned to design and provide a fire station, fire headquarters. So there's going to come a point in time when the select board's going to want to change that commission. So I'm not sure exactly how that happens. I think that's going to be up to the TM.
Okay.
Derek, why can't just have the selectmen redesign the mission of the committee to include the fire station and DPW? Because all of us who are on the committee are citizens of Abington and are not necessarily fire station only, have concerns about the fire station alone. So I don't know that you would necessarily need to make the committee any larger, but to make sure that we understand the scope is no longer just the fire station, but the fire station, DPW, and how it intersects with the police station as well. The safety area. So I'm thinking we could leave the committee with the same people, but again, just have the selectmen change the mission of the committee.
Okay.
I love that. Good job, Pete.
Yes, good input. All right. well, if we're gonna maintain the status quo for the committee as now, and we have our scope of what we need to do next, I don't think there's any other business that needs to be discussed unless anybody else has.
Meeting,
What's that, Pete?
next meeting date.
Yes. So do you guys want to meet again in 4 weeks?
Derek, can I just add one thing?
Yes, sir.
John Stone, I'd be more comfortable if we had representation from the DPW on this committee, if there are fire on the committee as well. That's just my opinion. I mean, the committee can go either way, but I just think we should have a voice. The DPW should have a voice if, you know, especially if it's the building's being built on town property, the DPW should have a voice.
I definitely agree, but the chief, he's not on the committee, right? He's just kind of.
No, but there's 4 residents at large, 2 representatives from the fire department. It would make sense that there's representatives from the
Right.
DPW.
Oh, I totally get that
And I
too.
would
That makes sense.
You're also going to want to talk to at least one person from the police department and loop them in the situation too.
You're right, Jared.
That's why I suggested 2 originally at the beginning.
Yeah.
My thought is, I think
That was
everybody,
the formation of this committee. 2 firefighters, 4 residents at large,
I think
essentially.
it's 5 residents.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Where's the 5th one?
You know, I don't want to grow the committee like in a large amount, but I think the DPW should have some say at
Absolutely.
least a little bit, maybe
Definitely.
1 or 2 members. I don't know, whatever you
Sure.
decide.
We
Now that I
weren't
know
thinking
there are
about that part, but yes, I think we were just thinking about regular citizens, you know, but yeah, we got you, John.
Thank you, Wendy.
Understand.
All right, so next meeting date, do we need to bring that up to is that something that we need to vote on now before we know for sure that this is something that's going to be viable? I guess I'm asking that to the
Yeah,
OPM.
it would probably be good to get it in the books,
Okay,
a meeting date. If we were to go, 2 or 3 weeks out, maybe, I don't think we should wait a month. But I think once we have some more information on moving forward, being able to move forward with the DPW as part of the project, then at least we have a meeting set up.
so does it make more sense to wait to hear back from town manager and town council if funding's going to be available for a feasibility study, and if that's what they want to do?
I think so, Derek.
And then if it is, at our next meeting, we can vote to increase the committee. And then, because it's still going to be a process for the programming and all that stuff to get done. So we have time. So it might be in our best interest to just pick a meeting for 2-3 weeks from now.
A good
Yeah,
2
why-
weeks. 2 weeks.
Yeah,
out.
why don't we pick 2
Weeks.
weeks out? Yeah.
And then in
that
the
way
meantime, we'll talk to the town manager and get some approval to do the study. And then we can bring in more members if needed.
sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, so 2 weeks out will be the 3rd.
March 3rd.
Can we look at a later date, maybe the week after?
It might be better to go another week.
When is the Board of Selectmen meeting too? Don't you want to do it and try to vote before that so that you could bring it to them?
Well, they meet again, I believe, on the
28th.
28th. So as long as we brought it back to them before the 14th, so we would have the whole week of the 6th to discuss before we talk to them.
How far in advance do you need to give them the information to put on their agenda though?
48 hours.
Okay.
So 3/10 would be then next week.
That'd be
Would you
okay.
rather go to 3:10? That's 3 weeks out.
Yeah. I mean, we don't necessarily have to keep it on a Thursday if another day is better.
That's right. I think 3:10 works, at least for us producing it.
Yeah.
I have
okay,
Park and Rec on Wednesdays, so it has to be Thursday for me that week.
okay.
I'm at the fire station on 310, but I could try to zoom in. It might be between calls, so.
I'll stay quiet that day.
Nah, not in Randolph.
All right, well, let's shoot for 3:10, if that works for everybody. 6
You
PM.
can do Zoom or in person.
I mean, it's probably difficult for everybody to come in. I'd like to be able to go back to being in person. But having it Zoom does make it convenient for the people that are unable to go. I guess between the committee members, what are your thoughts?
It doesn't matter to me. I'll do
I don't
either.
care.
Rick?
I think seeing as we're talking about administrative issues, and we're not looking at design solutions and rolling out the plans on the table. I think we should, Taylor and I are very close, but our architects do have a distance to travel. So seeing as it is administrative, maybe we stay Zoom for the time being. And once we have to start having working sessions and we want to be, in front of people, then we can transition to in person.
All right, I think that's a good idea.
Derek, would it be, if it's Zoom, would it be in our interest to invite one of the Board of Selectmen to join in the meeting and at least listen to, and it'd be easy to get.
They have been invited.
Okay.
And I believe there's one on now, or there was one. But they have been invited. I make sure to invite, as many people that have input from the town as possible. But we can definitely open it up.
Okay.
And I just asked a question. I don't know if I missed it, but what do we gain by pushing it off a week, or what are we trying to kind of fit in there?
I like this guy.
Well, we already have, the fire department has a meeting already on the 3rd at 7 PM. So it might be difficult to fit in at that time.
Oh,
at least that's
all right.
the fire department standpoint, but if we had to make a change, it's not impossible to do. But
yeah, I didn't know if it was something you were trying to hit with the Board of Selectmen or something like that, or.
Well, if we wait till our next meeting to vote to recommend to the selectmen adding new members, it doesn't really make a difference as long as it's done before when's that next meeting? The 14th. That
Okay.
we be able to hit.
So can we meet on the 2nd? And that way they can get that, because then by the time we have our next meeting, maybe we can get.
Can't do Wednesdays,
all settled.
Tuesday.
Yeah, I would,
Their next meeting is the 28th. So unless we meet before the 28th, they don't meet again until the 14th.
Oh, okay. When you originally said the 28th, I'm sorry, I thought you meant March. Okay.
Oh, no.
February,
Their next
okay.
meeting should be February 28th.
Okay.
So we have that 2-week window to hit the selectmen for the next meeting.
Why can't we get them now? Why can't we send them something now so it's in their next meeting on the 28th? And then by the time we have our meeting on the 9th, maybe they've already appointed someone to join us, or the 10th, whatever it is.
I guess we need approval first to find out if it's something that they're going to fund.
I see. Okay. Thank you. So whatever you guys want to do, I'm in.
If the 3rd is an issue for the fire department, that's fine. We can meet the 10th, but we can work effectively offline through emails too. So
Okay.
I was just thinking about the land RFP. If we can work with the town manager to get that out the door, then that would be great. I know you can't vote on something you haven't seen. You voted to approve to move forward with it. So we can get the final draft. Maybe you can circulate that, Derek, and everybody can kind of say, yeah, looks good. It can go out. That was the only thing I was thinking, is if there needed to be any sort of vote to get that on the street.
That's an excellent point, Taylor, because we're just kicking the can down the road. Perhaps the committee could appoint several members to work with us on the RFP and the town manager, so that we can get it out rather than having a full meeting.
Would that be something that we could do within a week and then reconvene next week to make any?
Well, the RFP is all drafted up.
So if we could appoint a few people from the committee to meet.
It could be like a subcommittee.
Right.
Could we just get on next Thursday real quick and vote to agree to the RFP?
Not a problem. And by that time, depending upon KBA's schedule, we could very well have their proposal in hand and have already met with the TM. So
Be something that we could.
I agree with Taylor. I say we get aggressive with this.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can get on Zoom next Thursday from my cell phone driving my truck if I have to, just so I can say, yay.
Not the fire truck.
I don't drive it, so.
All right, will that be okay then? How about we work to get a meeting next Thursday, the 24th?
6 o'clock?
Very good.
6 o'clock, Derek?
Yeah, yes.
Great.
Sounds good.
All right, great.
Okay, so should we make a motion now?
Yes, that's what I'm going to
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you very much, everybody.